Hello, welcome to Sweating in a Bear Suit, the podcast that doesn't have a strapline. And for the video listeners, the podcast that Steph dances to or puts a funny face or does something weird.
What I think would be really awesome if we all put cameras in our car and when we're driving, you know how you car dance and you really let go because no one's listening to you or looking at you? Like if I could just watch people do that for the rest of my life, I think I'd be really happy.
There must be some kind of channel on YouTube or someone's done this. There must be.
New idea?
New content.
Maybe we do it.
Maybe we do it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's an idea. Anyway, I've got to give you a strapline, don't I?
Yeah, the strapline comes first, Steph. Today, how are we summarising the podcast today?
All right, let me go with this pitch. I've been thinking about it, and I've been thinking that I've been too silly, and I need to come up with something that actually could be a strapline. And this could be a strapline, and not like me pretending to be too serious, just like actually give you a strapline. Get ready for it. So it goes like this. You go, welcome to Sweating in a Bear Suit. And then you go like this. It's leadership, baby!
I love that this is your most serious suggestion. If you don't have the video on, leadership baby sort of came with a wiggles motion with the hands.
Yeah, it's like you're pointing at the person. It's leadership, baby!
Yeah, great. Can we make a deal then? If we go with one of these, then you are forever the person that has to perform the strapline.
Unfortunately, I point of order. I refuse your suggestion.
Okay, great.
My job is to constantly create suggestions for things that you will have to do for the rest of this podcast.
Okay, great. So, righto.
Well, so what do you think of my suggestion, G?
Look, it was all right. It was pretty good. It's sort of summarised. I'm just amused that this is your most serious of the suggestions. How is leadership baby more serious than work?
Well, because I was thinking like an advertising executive might give you. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, like a big branding pitch. Yeah.
Yeah, it's leadership, baby. Always Coca-Cola. You know? Look, it's not my finest work. I will come back again next episode with another one.
Next episode there'll be another one. Great. Excellent. Well, we should crack on and actually do this episode. So we have finished.
And it's exciting. It's exciting, isn't it? Because, sorry, you were just saying this, but it's an exciting one. Why is it exciting?
Oh, yes, it's exciting because we finished our series of brown paper chats and now we're just on chat, unrelated to a bit of academic literature that we wrote. And now it's just our general musings, general thoughts, philosophies, thinking on a topic. Today, our topic is leadership is hard. It's a big topic. Steph, how did we decide that we wanted to talk about this today?
Because we had been on the internet and on
where all
platforms.
Joy goes to die.
Yeah, exactly. Where all the nicest parts of humanity are shown. And we were on one of your social media platforms and we noticed a thing. And the thing that we noticed is there was a lot of what I would call like yelling at leadership. A lot of like, you're not doing this right. Do that better. Yeah, how dare you not incorporate the 8 signs of aging into your things? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone had a theory and everyone was very angry. And it was almost the tone felt, I don't know how to describe it. It feels kind of snide. And like someone knows the right way of doing it, and all these idiots for years have been doing it wrong, and you're doing it wrong. And the only thing that you seem to be able to do is either agree with them, go, "Oh yes, thank you for, thank you for telling me how I'm terrible," or, you know, you can only really get on the bandwagon with how bad leadership is, and it just made me feel a bit sad.
Yeah, it's a little bit confrontational out there on the internet. Um, though there was someone telling us recently that that's a strategy, right? Let's create something that people disagree with. But what you've described, Steph, is we didn't see anyone disagreeing with leadership is bad and terrible and awful and you should do better, leaders all the time. And no one sticking their hand up and saying, oh, I actually think leaders are doing a pretty good job. The one in particular, and we won't talk specifically about what it was about, but it was like I'm going to use the word bullying, but in that it was the language was, oh, you're not brave enough. You're not, all these things sort of attacking the character of people in leadership roles, which to me just creates more divide between people who have leader in their title and those that don't. Interestingly, we were at a conference last week and it was mostly newer leaders in the room, I would say, and mostly leaders who were middle managers rather than the people at the top deciding how much money different departments have to spend. And there's this real tension between protecting my team from big, bad, scary executives and what a lot of the panelists were actually advocating for, that once you are a leader, you toe the company line, so to speak. You represent the company because you are a leader of that company, and it is only confusing for the people that you lead if you start going, oh yeah, I agree with you, aren't they terrible, those leaders? And so it's interesting because it feels like there's a little bit of hesitancy to join the leadership side because of all the shit that gets thrown at you when you are a leader. And the result is that middle managers are getting, I would say, performing badly because they're trying to hedge their bets between leadership representing the company and I will protect my team from the big, bad, scary leaders.
And it's not to say, that of course there aren't bad decisions made and there aren't bad actors as well that just, doing terrible things. Like that's, of course that exists. And of course people make mistakes in the work that they do. But I can't help but look at that kind of thing and go, okay, well, would we look at, say, all programmers and go, programmers, you're terrible. Get better with the thing. Or look at all teachers and say, and because it's a class of people that are doing, I think, a very important job. And, when you said toe the company line, I think leaders are so important because when they are doing their job well, they are making people feel safe. And in order for that to happen, people have to be getting coherent messages about what's going on. So when we hear the phrase toe the company line, the implication is that that line is bad. But there's another way of looking at it that's like sending a clear message that can promote safety in the organization about what actually needs to get done. And my experience of leaders is that they care deeply about all of the families that are reliant on that organization making money so that people can pay mortgages and put food on the table. I've heard that mentioned so many times by leaders that there are decisions that they make that are really tough, but they have to think about the health of the company in order that the company continues to succeed and that they need to make those decisions. And in order to do that, they have to try things out like anyone else does. And some of the things that they do will not work. Some of the things they do will work. Some of the things they do will be really hard things that will potentially cause pain to some people, but in the long run, help the majority of people in that organization to thrive and succeed. And of course, there are a whole bunch of ethical things with that about who we choose to take care of and who we don't. But how can a leader innovate and try new things if every time any mistake is made or any choice is made, we throw rocks at them? You know, it feels like a problem.
Well, it's interesting. You were talking about a leader's job is for if they're doing it well and there's a coherent message that is consistent and helps people to feel safe at work. If you use that logic on leaders, if they're constantly being told how shit they are, that is a very unsafe feeling to be in, which means that they can't then create the environment where people feel safe enough. And so by constantly criticizing, you're actually making it worse for yourself as a non-leader.
And it occurs to me that my criticism is not my criticism of criticizers. But I think that kind of thing within an organization is actually really healthy. You can have within one organization, a decision gets taken. People go, what are you doing that decision for? And that can be done in a really healthy way. The thing that really kind of got my goat, though, was when I was watching people outside of those work systems, generally consultants like us, who were being, I would argue, bullying towards leaders who were inside organizations who I'm also going to guess have not run massive companies that are looking after the livelihoods of 70, 100, 1,000 plus people who are working, and making a lot of comments about how things should be done when they are not in the system. They don't know what the needs of that system are. They don't know what is different for that organization. And they also don't know what it's like to wear the pressure of that crown as you try to take care of the needs of an organization and balance a whole bunch of different things that are incredibly hard to balance. I think that was the thing that really got me. Yeah.
Such an interesting social observation. If it's true that it's mostly consultants like us who rely on companies engaging us, paying us money for our expertise, that there's enough data out there that says to all the consultants that we don't want to be like that. That's an effective sales technique to say, to almost taunt a leader, you're not good enough, you're doing terribly, you are not brave enough, you are not good enough to do this. That they're relying on the psychology of the leader to go, oh, I have all these insecurities and they've just spoken to me, and so maybe I will get to be all the things that they have said are good for leaders if I engage them in money.
Yeah, but if I say you're not brave enough to do the thing that I say you should do, and then you turn around and go, oh, I am brave enough, I'll do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a way of, so, but then also I can't help but get psychoanalytic and be like, some people like the punishment,
Oh,
so potentially that's at play. And look, I have this problem where I disagree with everything that I say as soon as I say it. But, I do think there is a place for outsiders commenting on work that's doing and having new ways of doing it. But it's the gleeful spite at leaders for doing their job to the best of their ability, which like you say, I don't think actually helps them to do their work. I think it does a different thing that just makes me sad, because I think of all the leaders that I know that are trying really hard, and I haven't met a leader, this is very true, that doesn't want to do a good job because they care about the people that they lead. That is 100% true. I have disagreed on what those things were that they were doing, but every one of them wanted to do the right thing. by their people and the organization. Absolutely.
Mm. There is, if you were to go further in hypothesizing, consultants like us rely on leaders feeling a bit bad about what they do so that they are motivated to pay somebody to help them be better. If we had a solution, we would sell it and then be out of a job. Our thinking is that leadership is more like muscle development, in that you don't just get muscles and have them forever. You've got to work on them. But it's interesting to think about why criticism seems to be effective in getting people to engage outsiders.
Do you think it's the tone? Because I'm thinking about having worked with young people, having been an actor and also directed actors, which is an act of outside criticism often. But if I walked into a classroom and told the kids that they were rubbish, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't go well for the learning task. And that doesn't mean that I don't say, you need to work on this thing, or that was inappropriate, or it doesn't, none of that's there, but you're trying to do a thing that holds them in the regard that they can learn this thing. This is possible, you know? And look, I didn't hold it up all the time. There were times that I did go into that hypercritical way, and I apologized to children that I taught and went, oh, that was not a nice way to talk to a human being. You know, because it doesn't, it just gets in the way of the task of anyone changing or developing. Yeah, I think.
Maybe that's the thing. We're not set up. The system isn't working because we're not setting it up to be helpful long term. We don't treat adult learning like school education. There are some reasons why that's great, and there are other reasons, though, where it could be helpful to think about how we learned things as kids, which is our
because you're not a different person when you turn 18, you know, whatever age we consider people not at school age anymore. You don't turn into a different species of human at that point. You're the same. So the same theories apply. Yeah. And I suppose that's why we wanted to talk about it, is that, like, yeah, I think it gets in the way of making work better, which is our core mission, because the managers and the leaders are the ones that have the best capacity to change the system that is currently not working for us. And here's the other problem that's happening. I know a ton of people in my circle who are really good at their job, and none of them want to be managers or leaders because they see how terrible the job is and how it pleases no one. And so they're not going into it. And all of those people I'm thinking about are currently being like, people are just like, please come in, and we need leaders to come into it, but we're not getting the next generation of leaders coming through because they look at it and they're like, why would I want to do that? Get myself torn to shreds all the time. And then you look out in that room, like that conference we went to, and you look at these amazing people who are actually putting their hands up to do a really public job in front of each other. And did you notice how many of them were like taking notes, and they were really like, like they were hungry for it because they desperately want to do this good job. And in 3 years' time, they'll be the ones that are sitting there getting the abuse hurled at them by consultants telling them that they're shit. You know? Sad.
Yeah, they will. It is. And there's less, it's interesting, we've sort of flipped the social kudos and things that you get in that, even go when the system wasn't quite set up, but pre-internet days, go the 60s, there was there was hierarchy. With hierarchy came prestige and extra remuneration, and you had social and monetary power in being higher up the chain hierarchically, and leading teams or companies was seen as a really good thing. Whereas it's sort of flipped now. And while salaries do tend to be better, the higher up you are, they're not always better than individual contributors. It's been many times in my life where I've been leading and know that I get paid less than someone who has far less responsibility, but a different skill set. So we don't have that. There's not the social or the financial motivation to get higher in a company.
A question. Go on. No, you do yours. You had a brain thought.
I was on a tangent. I was thinking about the large numbers of small businesses in Australia and whether that's increased in the since the internet's been invented. Because I know a lot of people like me who got to a point in their leadership and went, that's enough for me. I'm going to go stop that.
Start my own thing.
My own thing. We're leaders, but it's not leading a group of people in a discipline that's specific. Yeah. Where was your brain thought going before?
When I feel myself getting really adamant about a thing or spicy in my feelings about a thing, and when there's a lot of agreement in the conversations I'm having, I learned this from doing my master's. A really cool question to ask is, how might the opposing side be right if you're taking sides in an argument? So I was just wanting to stop myself and be like, all right, but how might that, I shouldn't call it throwing rocks, but how might that rock throwing thing be right? And I think a bit might be tied into this idea of the system being bad, because historically we did give leaders so much authority that they did abuse it. Like and I'm talking, well, not even that long ago, and of course there's abuse still going on now. And so what am I thinking? The trauma of work, because people have potentially been traumatized by people in authority in different organizations, not just the work organization, any organization, that might still be in people. And that's where the aggression, anger, sadness needs to go, potentially.
Yeah, and potentially motivations of people who are throwing things out there at leaders, throwing shit at leaders, they might have the same motivations as us, right? They might be about trying to make work better. And to speak to the sales psychology of it, it might actually get more people to engage with them and try and work on their leadership skills.
Yeah. And look, as much as is this true? I was about to say, as much as I didn't do this as a teacher, I think I did. Like, guilt can be a motivating factor for change. I'm also Italian Catholic background, so I have a degree in guilt.
Yeah.
But again, I think for me, it's the tone. There's a way to get someone on side with their change when they've made a mistake or done something horrible.
Tricky thing with the internet, though, very difficult to get tone across in text, and we read it based on our own interpretation. We might have been jumping on this rant at people when they were actually...
Because we read it wrong. Yeah.
And, I mean, it's not like we are talking about one in particular. We just saw a lot in the same week that prompted us to think about it.
Oh, and also, just to add to it, it's not just the, throwing rocks. It's the continual, so you get one person telling you KPIs are the most important thing that you can do because they establish boundaries and they set people up for knowing what they've got to do. And then you get a post just underneath it being like, KPIs are terrible and you should never do them. And so it's even just like the entirety of messages where you're literally hearing the exact different instruction. And that's no one person's fault. But then I'm also just drawn to the dilemma of a leader who, particularly a new leader, who is trying to figure it out and trying to take advice, and they're getting all this different advice and the pressure. And the worst thing you could do is fuck up. I know I would have a terrible time taking an action. It would freeze me up and it would make me not capable of trying something out, taking an action. You know? And that's where my little heart went. I was just like, oh, leaders.
Yeah.
I kind of want to give you a hug because it's hard. It's hard out there.
It is hard out there.
And it's hard out there for a lot of people, but that would be a hard thing. And we need good leaders and we need good new leaders who want to come in. And we've got to, I do think we have to change some of the tone with which we speak to leaders in order to encourage that to happen. A mate of mine decided to sit for federal parliament. And I was like, that's freaking awesome because we need good leaders to come in and do a very important job. And then the other thought that went into my brain is I was like, he's going to have a lot of hurt thrown his way. It was really sad because I was like, I really care about this human. I deeply love him, but I also know that he's about to make his life and the life of his family terrible. Because I've known a couple of politicians in my life and it has not been an easy or nice road to hoe. You know?
It's constantly relying on division to get votes in politics, I think, has done a disservice to the individuals who are choosing to represent their local area and make positive change for the groups. Because we in Australia have there's basically two-party preferred in every state. And a lot of how elections work is by creating an us and them, a division.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's helped.
And it's also even like I would say in the minds of your average human walking around, even if a politician is of your party, there's still a bit of like, politicians. And it's sort of the same as leaders. Like it feels the same where it's this assumption that you have to be some kind of terrible person to want to step into authority and take power because you might be a terrible person who wants to use it in a bad way. However, you might also be a really good person that wants to use that power to do something really good for a group of people. Yeah. This got very philosophical, G.
It did. Well, it's tricky because, I don't know, while we're talking about this, I keep coming back to, well, part of our business is helping people by giving them information about what to do and what not to do. I hope that we have it in a slightly different way, but I'm very conscious of the potential hypocrisy.
Yeah, however, one of the things so a core tenet of system psychodynamics practice is unless you are in some way in the system, you have no idea what will help. You have some ideas of what might help, and what you have to do is partner with people to help them think about what could be tried, try some things out, and then test if it's working. And that's like an underlying principle. This is why I made us bang on in the brown paper about what a brown paper was and the field theory dynamic of accepting that there is no 1 + 1 = 2 answer. There is no right answer. There's just a bunch of people looking for what they might perceive to be patterns and trying things out and seeing if something works. which I hope continues to be a point of difference, because I can't work the other way, because KPIs are good for some people. KPIs are not good for other people. And both of those can be true.
Yes.
Like, you know?
Well, we are heading towards wrap up time. The conversation feels like it's at a natural pause, do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that was Sweating in a Bear Suit for today. We will return soon with more rants and bants on
With more
various,
sweat.
with more sweat. Until then,
Yep.
let's go make some flying cars.
Woo!